Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into straw sandals, tightening that frayed hakama belt, and time-traveling back to Edo, Japan for lunch. You're a low-ranking samurai living in a cramped wooden house with paper walls and exactly 0 silver coins in your purse. And yet, you still need to eat. Honor can't fill your stomach, and today, neither can your pantry. Your katana may be polished, your hair tied in the perfect chonmage, but your belly, it's not impressed. It's staging a very vocal protest right now. The sun's climbing, the neighbor's already cooking something that smells suspiciously like actual food, and you have about half a bowl of rice left, if you can call that stock. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe it, only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your city and what time it is where you are. I love seeing where this sleepy little time machine is reaching out now. Dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up to the soft creak of bamboo blinds swaying in the breeze. Outside, a hawker yells something about pickled daikon. Your stomach replies in its own way with a dramatic, hollow groan that echoes in the stillness of your little room. The sun is already warm on the tatami mats, but your food is cold, probably because the rice cooker pot in the corner hasn't been used in 3 days. You sit up, scratch your head, and look around. The house is quiet, no wife to ask what's for lunch, no servants to fetch you anything, just you, your sword, and that one ceramic rice jar in the kitchen corner that's looking mighty light these days. You slide it open. Yep, about a spoonful left, enough for maybe a small onigiri. If you're generous with your definition of small, it's a rude awakening, but not unfamiliar. You're not one of those daimyo with 10 retainers and a private chef who can carve lotus root into poetry. You're more like the samurai who hopes his friend has leftovers. Still, pride's a sticky thing. You won't just go knocking on doors begging for food. No. First you open the wooden cabinet. Maybe, just maybe, there's a piece of dried fish you forgot about. Nope, just a suspiciously shriveled umeboshi plum, and some sesame seeds stuck to the corner. You consider your options. And by options, we mean water, rice, water, go out. You pick option 3, because even in the Edo-period, nothing motivates a person like hunger. You slide the shoshi door open and step out into the dusty alleyway. It's late morning, and the street is just waking up. Merchants laying out wares, kids chasing each other with bamboo sticks, and somewhere far off, the faint rhythmic clang of sword training. You feel a little guilty not being there, but hey, even samurai need to eat before they fight imaginary duels. As you walk, you pass a retired warrior turned calligrapher who gives you a nod and a knowing glance. His ink-stained hands wave vaguely toward his porchware. Wait, is that a bowl of miso soup? Your stomach nearly does a backflip, but you keep walking. Pride again. You'll find your own lunch. Somehow, somewhere in your mind you remember something. A fellow ronin told you once, a hungry samurai isn't dishonorable, just cranky. At least historians agree that while Bushido emphasized discipline and frugality, food was still central to the day. Especially lunch. It was the one big meal for many, but what it consisted of, that varied wildly. For someone like you, it was often just a rice bowl and pickles, if you were lucky. And then there were stories, like the one about the samurai who bartered his poetry for a grilled sweet potato, or the one who fainted in the middle of a duel because he skipped breakfast. Weirdly, the academic world still debates whether lower-ranked samurai had access to the same food supply as merchants. Some think they did. Others argue merchants were secretly better off, especially when it came to food. After all, money talks, even in a society that claims honors louder. But right now your own stomach is talking louder than either. You reach the end of the alley. There's a market nearby. Maybe, just maybe, someone's willing to trade a sword cleaning service for a bowl of barley rice. Worth a shot. You wander into the edge of the town market, your wooden getter clacking against the packed earth road, in rhythm with the steady rumble of your stomach. The air is warm and smells like burnt soy sauce, grilled eggplant, and something slightly fishy. It's the kind of scent that makes you close your eyes for a second just to imagine what might be on the other end of it. Spoiler, it's probably not for you. This isn't the grand market square you see in woodblock prints. It's more like a narrow street of makeshift stalls, some just blankets on the ground with food laid out like treasure, others more structured, with faded Norin curtains and tiny hanging lanterns that clink in the breeze. You didn't bring anything to trade. Not even an old coin, not even a button from your kimono. But you brought your charm, your sword though. It's mostly decorative these days, and your willingness to negotiate with the desperation of a hungry man. First, your eyes land on a bamboo tray with 3 rice balls, perfect triangles, wrapped in crispy nori. One has a sesame crust, another a visible umeboshi poking out the center like a sour eye. Your hand twitches. You could definitely eat all 3 in one bite. The vendor catches your stare. 1 ball, 1 mon, he says, then adds, no bartering. You offer a respectful bow and back away slowly, like you're not heartbroken inside. You move on. Next, dol pickled, daikon and cucumber. The kind that leaves your fingers yellow for a week but pairs perfectly with plain rice. The woman behind the stand is chatting with another customer and barely notices you. A good sign. You lean in. Any samples? She eyes your tattered haori, the sword at your side, then your empty hands. No samples. Unless you're here to buy or marry my niece, she says, raising an eyebrow. You back away again. Second time today, then finally a break. At the far end of the alley, under a slightly crooked parasol, sits an elderly man with a pot. Steam curls up from it like some divine fog. The smell miso, warm, familiar, slightly earthy miso. You're drawn to it like a moth to a tiny wooden stove. Ah, samurai-san, he croaks with a smile. You hungry? You nod, doing your best to look dignified while your stomach does parkour. He ladles some into a chipped wooden bowl. Inside, there's a cube of tofu, a few scallions, and bless the heavens a tiny piece of kombu floating like treasure. I offer soup to those who need it. No payment, just tell me a good story. You blink a story. Oh buddy, do you have stories? You sit down cross-legged on the straw mat, accept the bowl with both hands, and sip. It's salty, it's simple, it's barely food, but to you, it tastes like victory while you sip. You tell the old man about the time you accidentally kicked over your commander's sake bottle during practice and blamed it on a ghost. He laughs so hard he nearly spills the soup around you. The market buzzes on, but for a moment, time slows. The sun is warm on your shoulders, the miso is warm in your belly, and your spurred. Well, it's still useless, but hey, it looks cool. Historians believe miso soup was a staple for samurai across all ranks. Rich or poor, everyone had it though, of course. The quality varied wildly. Some had clams or mushrooms, others had water and hope. And yes, academics still argue over how often lower-ranked warriors had access to good broth. Some records claim it was daily, others say weekly, if at all. Depends who you ask. Depends how romantic they are about feudal Japan. But none of that matters now. Right now, you're just a guy in a borrowed moment of peace, cradling a bowl of soup like it's the last warm thing on earth. You leave the market with a belly that's no longer growling like a wounded tanuki, but more like a cat that's still slightly annoyed. You feel 12% alive again. Not bad considering you started the day with rice dust and desperation. You wander back through the neighborhood alleys, your feet carrying you on muscle memory. Your thoughts drift to what lunch should look like for someone of your social rank. You're a samurai, after all, granted one who's more likely to duel hunger than enemies, but still, you have status. Or, at least, you used to. You pause at a narrow wooden bridge, watching the stream bubble underneath. That's when the scent hits you, savory, comforting, deeply nostalgic. Someone nearby is cooking actual lunch. You follow the trail like a fox in pursuit of a dream, and land at a small family-run food stall just setting up for midday business. Hanging from the rafters is a weathered sign: miso soup, rice balls, pickles, and seasonal surprises. The surprise today: a steaming wooden pot filled with soft daikon and a murky broth. Your eyes widen. Daikon boiled, soaked in flavor, tender enough to eat with your eyes closed. That's not flashy. But in Edo, Japan, this was comfort food at its finest. A younger samurai walks past with a paper-wrapped lunch in hand. He's got clean robes and the posture of someone whose family probably owns land. You catch a glimpse inside his bundle: 2 tightly packed rice bowls, a slice of sweet tamagoyaki, and something shiny fish. Is that grilled mackerel? Okay. Now you're not just hungry or offended by how good that looks. This is the part of the day where reality settles in like a heavy futon. Meals in this time weren't just about nutrition, they were statements. The food you ate reflected who you were, your family, your class, your reputation, even your political alignment. Samurai often dined on polished white rice, a symbol of prestige. You, on the other hand, have been eating millet rice for weeks, coarser, less fluffy, and honestly, kind of judgmental. And don't even get started on pickles. Oh, pickles were serious business. Daikon, cucumber, eggplant all soaked in vinegar. Rice bran, or miso, for many households. These were lunch. Not a side of lunch, the whole thing. Some were so sour they'd knock the memory out of your head. Others were sweet and fermented until they practically became candy, but it wasn't just about what was on the table, it was who prepared it. And for a solo samurai like yourself, that'd be you think back to your own cooking, which is to say, boiling whatever hasn't rotted yet. You once tried to fry a lotus root over a candle. It did not go well. Fun fact, in the Edo period, leftovers weren't looked down on, they were expected. Meals were rarely made from scratch each day. You'd make a big batch of miso soup in the morning, eat some for breakfast, reheat it for lunch, water it down for dinner, add rice, repeat, and if you were lucky, toss in something extra like tofu, if payday had just passed. And yet, despite all this practicality, there's still a surprising amount of beauty and care in how food was treated. Even poor households tried to plate things nicely. Sometimes a humble rice ball would be wrapped in a clean leaf or garnished with a single sesame seed, because why not? If you're going to suffer aesthetically. Academics have spent decades trying to reconstruct daily samurai meals from surviving documents, cookbooks, and paintings, and they're still debating how functional were these meals versus how ritualistic. Did food reflect philosophy? Was lunch also a meditation? One thing's for sure, today's lunch was survival. Tomorrow's, who knows? You adjust your sword, tighten your sash, and glance at the setting sun. It's not quite evening yet, but you're already wondering if anyone in the market will trade pickles for a short poem or a dramatic reading of The Art of War, because honestly, you might try it. You're back in your neighborhood, standing in front of your modest wooden home, holding nothing but memories of miso and envy. The door creaks as you slide it open. Inside, it's quiet, too quiet. Your stomach may have stopped protesting, but your curiosity, it's very much awake. You kneel beside your little food jar, the one that holds emergency rice. Still empty, of course, but beside it sits something you forgot about entirely. A tiny bamboo basket wrapped in faded cloth. You unwrap it like it's treasure, and to you, it kind of is. Inside, there it is. One lonely rice ball, slightly dry, lightly salted, and pressed into an imperfect triangle. You made it yesterday, hoping to save it for today's lunch. And honestly, past you deserves a medal. You bite into it, it's simple, just rice and salt, but somehow, it hits just right. Probably because you're imagining it could have been worse. Much worse. Back in Edo, Japan, the onigiri rice bowl was the ultimate travel food, soldier ration, and lunchbox hero. Samurai on patrol often carried one or two in their sleeves, wrapped in bamboo or lotus leaves. Portable, durable, and if you were lucky, filled with a pickled plum or a bit of miso paste. You've got plain rice and vibes. As you chew, slowly, savoring each grain like it's hand-delivered by the emperor himself. You remember something, pickles. You head over to your modest storage shelf and find a small ceramic crock. You open it, and voila, a few tired-looking takoon slices, pickled daikon, slightly too salty, a little shriveled, but they're still good, kind of. You lay them out on a wooden plate beside your onigiri, like a kazuki master plating a seasonal dish. Then you step back and admire your lunch. Simple, minimalist samurai-core.ue in silence. Just the faint sound of birds outside, the breeze brushing the paper walls, and your thoughts drifting through history. Not all samurai were poor, of course. Some, especially the upper-tier retainers and lords, had elaborate lunches, rice, soup, grilled river fish, seasonal vegetables, and sometimes even rare luxuries like yuba tofu skin, sweet omelets, or dried seafood soaked in sake. You're not jealous. Okay, maybe a little. But there's a certain beauty in humble food. And besides, academics are still bickering over whether high-ranking samurai even enjoyed their fancier meals, or whether it was all ceremony and no satisfaction. Scrolls even suggest that lower-ranking warriors appreciated food more because it was rare and hard-earned. That part, you can confirm. You finish your last bite of rice bowl, chew the final pickle slice, and sip the remaining barley tea from this morning. Room temperature. Slightly bitter. Still better than river water. You sit back against the wooden beam, hands resting on your lap, and let the quiet settle. Your belly isn't full, but it's content. Your mind isn't racing, but it's humming. And for just a moment, everything is still. That's the thing about samurai lunches. They weren't grand, but they were grounding. Not much, but enough, And in a world where the next meal isn't guaranteed, enough is its own kind of luxury. The breeze has picked up a little, brushing through the open shoshi screen and rattling the wind chime above your door. You lean back, resting your head against the wooden post, eyes half-lidded. The rice ball and pickles are settling in, and for the first time today, you're not planning your next desperate move. That is until your nose catches something again. Is a soy sauce sizzling on hot stone. You lean forward, almost instinctively. It's coming from the next street over. You know that sound. That sizzle means someone's grilling something, probably something you can't afford. But hey, that's never stopped you before. You make your way over, hands tucked inside your sleeves, trying to look casual and not like a culinary predator on the hunt. As you turn the corner, you see it, a small tea house, tucked between two taller shops, barely noticeable unless you knew to look for it, and out front a portable grill. A young man in an apron fanning the coals. On top grilled mochi, crisped edges, soft centers, and a drizzle of soy sauce that's caramelizing right before your eyes. Your stomach, which had just made peace with pickles, now throws a tantrum. Smells good, right? The man says, grinning. Special today. Fresh rice flour from Saitama to Mon per piece. You fish through your sleeve for a coin. Nothing. Not even a lint ball. The man shrugs. I trade, too. Got poetry, haiku, sword dance, funny stories. You blink. That's surprisingly generous and just vague enough for you to work with. So you tell him a joke. Something about a ronin, a monk, and a daikon that you barely remember the punchline to. He laughs anyway, whether at the joke or your delivery, you're not sure, but either way. He hands you a piece of mochi. It's hot. You hold it carefully, biting into the crispy edge. The soy sauce hits first sweet and salty, then the chewiness of the rice cake fills your mouth. It's rich, in the simplest way possible. Grilled mochi, by the way, wasn't always just a snack. In samurai circles, it could be a ritual food served during New Year's or special events. But for poorer warriors, it was often the closest thing to a treat. Sticky, filling, and made from rice is the most precious staple of them all. You sit on the step of the tea house, chewing slowly, watching people pass. A merchant's wife with a silk parasol, a child balancing a tray of soba noodles for delivery, a group of apprentices in matching uniforms on their way to training. And then, a voice beside you. You know, says the tea house owner, leaning on the doorframe. My grandfather used to say, a samurai's lunch tells you more than his sword ever could. You nod, not just out of politeness, but because, well, it makes sense. A sword might show who you were or who you're supposed to be, but your lunch, that tells the truth. Academics still debate whether food truly defined the social status in Edo, Japan, or if that's just how we interpret the records now. Some say lunch was utilitarian, others argue it was symbolic, even poetic. Honestly, standing here with soy sauce dripping down your chin, you kind of hope it was both. You finish the mochi, give the cook a deep bow of thanks, and stand up. The sun's moving higher now, and there's still the rest of the day to face. But for the first time today, your steps feel a little lighter. You may not have a feast, but you had flavor, and flavor, as it turns out, is enough to remind you, you're still alive. You're walking again, this time with a sense of calm that only slightly grilled carbohydrates can provide. The streets are warmer now. Sunlight filters through the eaves of wooden rooftops, casting striped shadows on the road. A couple of sparrows hop around a rice merchant's stall, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, then gives up, presumably also hungry. You pass a man napping upright against a sake barrel. You envy him. You're not tired, but you are curious, because for the past 20 minutes, you've been thinking about meat. Yeah, meat. Not the theoretical kind, not the kind you imagine while chewing dried seaweed. You're thinking real, actual, sizzling meat. Something rare, something grilled, something completely and utterly off the menu. See, in Edo, Japan, eating meat was complicated. It wasn't banned outright, but it was strongly discouraged. Buddhism had a tight cultural grip, and animals like cows and horses were seen as labor partners, not lunch, the official line. Samurai didn't eat meat, the unofficial reality. You step around a corner and spot a small cart tucked in the shadows. No signs, just a man with sharp eyes, turning skewers over a brazier. The smell is different this time, gamey, rich, smoky, not fish, definitely not tofu. You don't say anything. You just raise an eyebrow. The man meets your gaze and says quietly, boar from the mountains, want some? Your mouth doesn't answer, but your feet take a step closer. Of course, you don't buy it outright, you talk in circles. You ask about mountain cuisine. You reference old medicinal scrolls. Technically, wild boar meat was allowed as medicine. For vitality, they used to say. And vitality is, well, extremely relevant to your lifestyle of chronic undernourishment. He hands you a skewer. You look at it like it's a forbidden scroll. It's charred on the edges, dripping fat, and smells like a secret. You bite it, it's chewy, gamey, slightly sweet. He must have marinated it in miso or sake. It's also very very good. You chew in silence while the man fans the coals. He doesn't ask for payment. Maybe you look too broke. Maybe he just respects a fellow rulebag. Or maybe he knows you'll come back tomorrow, with a haiku and puppy eyes. Historians are still scratching their heads about how often meat really entered the samurai diet. Some scrolls suggest boar and venison were secretly popular among rural warriors. Others argue those accounts were rare exceptions. And then there's the issue of chicken.ou. Chicken was the polite loophole. Many samurai homes raised chickens not just for eggs, but well, eventually for soup. But officially, chicken was also medicinal, a cure for fatigue, a cure for boredom, a cure for poverty, if you sold it, instead of eating it. In fact, there's a famous anecdote which may or may not be true, but let's pretend it is. A retainer once served grilled chicken to his lord during a stormy afternoon. When questioned, the retainer swore it was sky. Everyone nodded, pretended that made sense, and moved on. Academics still argue whether skyfish was a real term or just a clever excuse. Either way, you like it. You're gonna use that one. You finish the last bite of meat and hand back the skewer. You give a short vocal parts respect and silent agreement. This never happened. The man gives a nod that says, "Come back if you ever need medicine." You walk away a little taller. Your sword may be dull, your pockets may be empty, but your stomach, it just experienced a crime of passion. And honestly, you'd do it again. The sun is just past its peak now, high overhead and casting everything in that soft, sleepy glow that makes even the loudest crows sound like background noise. You've had soup, you've had rice, you've even committed a mild culinary crime involving wild boar, but now you're curious again, not hungry, not exactly, just nosy. Because as you stroll down a quiet street lined with larger houses and neatly trimmed hedges, you hear something, laughter, clinking porcelain, and the faint rustle of silk. You stop in your tracks. That, my friend, is the sound of a high-ranking samurai having lunch. You casually glance around. No guards, no suspicious glares. Just a cracked wooden fence with a convenient gap in it, practically inviting you to peek. And you do. Because of course you do. Inside is a small garden, with a raised wooden veranda on it. A middle-aged samurai in pristine robes is sitting calmly sipping soup while a servant quietly sets down a tray next to him. You squint. On the tray, a lacquered bento box, its compartments lovingly filled, polished white rice, glistening like pearls, a small grilled fish, maybe mackerel, judging by the shine, tamagoyaki rolled perfectly, a few pickled vegetables, carefully arranged in a fan shape, and something else. Wait, is that a plum wine jelly cube? You nearly fall into the hedge. This isn't lunch. This is performance art. Upper-class samurai, unlike you and your humble miso crimes, dined with formality. Meals were often prepared by cooks trained in Kyoto-style techniques, seasonal ingredients, symmetrical plating, and a touch of poetry. In every bite, a meal wasn't just food, it was a reflection of social order. You once read that during formal occasions, meals were served in courses, hans and rairi. They called it multiple trays, multiple bowls, all meticulously timed. First the rice and soup, then sashimi or grilled dish, then simmered vegetables, all the way to fruit or wagashi for dessert. Not that you've ever experienced it yourself. You've only heard stories from drunk relatives and eavesdropped conversations. But now, seeing it with your own eyes, it's kind of beautiful. Also annoying. Because suddenly your leftover pickled daikon feels like a cruel joke. You think, maybe if things had gone differently, if you had been born into a different family, or if you hadn't lost that duel in your youth, you'd be sitting there right now, calmly tasting lotus root with a seasonal glaze. Not leaning against someone's fence like a soy-so-scented raccoon. But then again, you're free, aren't you? You can eat what you want, when you can get it. You can laugh at your own jokes, sneak wild boar, and you don't have to sit in seiza for an hour while someone reads poetry about radishes. Historians still debate how much of this upper-class dining was practical versus ceremonial. Some claim it was mostly show, an elaborate dance of manners and minimal chewing. Others believe it genuinely nourished both body and soul. As for you, you'd take a bowl of miso and a good story over jelly cubes and rigid posture any day. Still, that tamagoyaki looked really good. You linger a moment longer, just until the servant places a cup of sake beside the samurai, and then quietly slip away. No one saw you, probably. You adjust your robes, pat your sword hilt for no reason at all, and tell yourself that your next lunch will be just as fancy. You lie to yourself a lot, but it's okay. That's part of being a samurai. You're back on the move, weaving through narrow side streets that snake between houses and shops, the kind of paths that only locals or lost samurai really know. The midday haze is softening now, and the shade from the tiled rooftops offers small blessings. You pass a noodle vendor packing up for the afternoon, and a street kid eyeing a plum like it's the meaning of life. And then, you smell noodles. Not soba, not udon. Something colder, more subtle. You stop. A small banner flaps in the breeze beside a humble storefront. Hayashimano, cold things for hot days. Your feet decide before your brain does. You duck inside. It's dim, cool, and smells faintly of vinegar and bamboo. A woman behind a low counter looks up and smiles. Hot out, huh? She says. You look like you walked all the way from Kyoto. You bow politely and take a seat at the only table. It's made of unfinished wood, smooth from decades of elbows and spilled tea. Moments later, she sets down a tray, a bamboo mat, neatly arranged hayashi soba, cold buckwheat noodles, glistening with a light soy-based sauce, garnished with scallions, shredded seaweed, and a bit of grated daikon on the side. You nearly cry. Cold noodles on a hot day are not just food, they are healing. You pick up your chopsticks, say a quiet thanks mostly to the universe, and dig in. The noodles are firm, slippery, refreshing in a way that warm rice could never be. The dipping sauce is salty, just a little sweet, and has that earthy punch that only fermented soy can offer. You sip the remaining sauce from the little bowl. It runs down your throat like liquid wisdom. It's said that during the Edo period, cold dishes became more common in the summer, especially among city dwellers with no refrigeration. People got creative. Fermented vegetables, cold noodles, pickled everything. Survival through sourness, basically. But hayashi soba wasn't just a peasant thing. It was enjoyed by all ranks, even some higher-ups, especially in the capital. Some food historians believe it was one of the few truly democratic lunch dishes of the time. Naturally, scholars still debate this. Some argue cold soba was too fragile to serve widely. Others insist it was everywhere, cheap, quick, and clever. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. Like most things in history and noodle bowls, the shop lady returns with a cup of cold barley tea, sets it down, and says, "You have that just dash, DUELLED dash A dash rice dash tax collector single quotes. Look, long day." Chuckle, let's just say the morning was dramatic. She smiles. Noodles help, and they do. You sit there a while, elbows on the table, tea in hand, watching the shadows grow longer across the tatami floor. Outside, the cicadas have started up again, their buzzing like the summer's heartbeat. Lunch today wasn't planned, but somehow it turned into a grand tour. Soup with a stranger, rice ball from the past, boar from the shadows, mochi diplomacy, jelly cube envy, and now, the most elegant dish of all, cold noodles in silence. There's something about sitting in a noodle shop alone, eating slowly, letting the world drift by. It reminds you that not every part of a samurai's life has to be about honor or combat, or squinting at clouds thinking about death poems. Sometimes it's just about eating something really good at exactly the right moment. You drain the last of the tea, leave a bow instead of payment, and head back into the light. Your stomach is happy, your heart is calm. You're full for now, but there's still a long afternoon ahead. You stroll out of the noodle shop, the late afternoon sun warming your back as you make your way toward the quieter residential streets. Your stomach, pleasantly settled after the cool noodles and barley tea, hums a soft contentment, but your mind wanders to something you overheard earlier, conversation about rice quality, and how it defines a samurai standing. Because yes, rice was more than just food, it was power, the very currency of the samurai class, paid as stipends and the basis for status. And today, you're about to get a first-hand taste of that social divide. You duck into a narrow alley where a group of samurai from a nearby clan has just sat down on tatami mats spread outside a larger-than-average house. They're laughing, quietly, passing around lacquered boxes filled with rice that gleams like freshly polished ivory. You watch as one opens his box to reveal perfectly cooked hokumaya, pure white, short-grain rice, steaming and sticky. It's the kind of rice that's reserved for the upper classes. To samurai like you, white rice is a luxury, often replaced by cheaper grains like millet or barley. Your own meals have long been a patchwork of whatever was affordable, with barley mixed in to stretch the supply. The taste difference, noticeable. The texture, a little less refined but hearty. The prestige, off the charts. You listen as one of the men praises the chef who sourced this rice from a distant province. The grain is delicate, full of flavor. Only the best for our lords. You feel a pang, not quite envy, more like recognition. Rice was life, and life was rice. But then, a small, familiar voice interrupts the formal scene. A young apprentice stumbles, knocking over a bowl of pickled vegetables. They scatter like little salted soldiers across the wooden floor. The laughter halts. The young man bows deeply, muttering apologies, but the senior samurai just chuckle and say, "Even the finest rice can't prevent clumsiness." It's a reminder, status is fleeting. Even the most polished samurai spills pickles. You tuck that thought in your mind like a hidden plum inside a rice ball. Meanwhile, food historians still debate just how pervasive these class distinctions were. Some argue that by the late Edo period, social lines around food had blurred due to urbanization. Others believe that for samurai, rice quality remained a sharp marker of privilege. Whatever the truth, your taste buds know one thing. When you finally get to eat pure white rice, it's a small, quiet victory. For now, you keep walking. Because tomorrow, who knows what will be on your plate. But for tonight, you carry the taste of both rice and reality. The sun is sinking lower now, painting the sky in soft oranges and pinks. The day's heat is giving way to a gentle coolness that sighs through the wooden eaves and rustles the leaves in the garden. You find yourself wandering near the edge of town, where the farmland begins to spread out like a patchwork quilt of green and gold. Here, things are quieter, simpler. You watch farmers wrapping up their work, the scent of freshly harvested grains mixing with the faint smoke from cooking fires. And then, you catch sight of a small group gathered around a low fire pit. The flames dance lazily, casting warm light on faces, dirt-smudged but smiling. They're roasting sweet potatoes, a humble but beloved food among common folk and samurai alike. You approach cautiously, and one of the farmers waves you over, offering a half-frosted sweet potato wrapped in crisped leaves. You accept, and the warmth of the potato seeps into your fingers. You peel back the skin and bite in. Sweet, soft, earthy, the taste is like the countryside itself. Sweet potatoes weren't always common in Japan. Introduced from the Americas via the Portuguese, they became popular in the Edo period, especially during times of famine or poor rice harvests, because they were hearty and filling. For many samurai living modestly, sweet potatoes were a reliable source of energy, often replacing more expensive rice. You chew thoughtfully, feeling the comfort of this simple food. It's honest, unpretentious, and good enough to silence your growling stomach. You glance around, noticing the laughter, the camaraderie, the sense of shared survival. Food, after all, wasn't just about nutrition. It was connection, of course. Historians debate how widespread sweet potato consumption was among the samurai class. Some argue it was strictly a food of the lower classes, a last resort. Others say many samurai embraced it out of necessity or even preference. Either way, as you sit near the fire, savoring your sweet potato, you realize that a samurai's lunch was less about what was on the plate and more about how it made them feel. Full. Yes, but also part of something bigger. You finish your snack, thank your hosts with a humble bow, and stand as the fire crackles and the sky deepens into twilight. Tomorrow is another day, another meal, another story, and you're ready. The evening air grows cooler as you make your way back toward town, the fading light casting long shadows over the streets. Your belly is pleasantly full from the sweet potato, but something tells you the day's culinary journey isn't quite finished yet. You find yourself near a quiet tea house, its sliding doors half open, revealing the soft glow of paper lanterns inside. The faint scent of green tea mingles with the subtle aroma of roasted chestnuts. Curious. You step inside. The room is calm and inviting with tatami mats and low tables. A few patrons sit quietly, sipping tea and nibbling on small sweets. Behind the counter, a woman in a simple kimono gracefully prepares matcha, whisking it into a frothy, vibrant green cup. She offers you a seat, and soon, a bowl of matcha appears before you, accompanied by a small, delicately shaped sweet called wagashi. You pick up the wagashi. It's a soft, translucent jelly filled with sweetened red bean paste, molded into the shape of a chrysanthemum flower. The sweetness is subtle, designed to balance the slight bitterness of the tea. Matcha tea and wagashi were staples of the Chen-no-yu, the Japanese tea ceremony, which was not just about drinking tea but about mindfulness, art, and social bonding. Samurai, especially higher-ranking ones, often practice this ritual to cultivate calm and discipline. You sip the tea slowly, feeling the warmth spread through your chest. The bitterness sharpens your senses, while the wagashi melts on your tongue. A quiet celebration of craftsmanship and patience. You reflect on how this afternoon of simple meals, from miso soup to wild boar, cold noodles to sweet potato, led you here to this moment of refined tranquility. Historians still debate how widespread tea ceremonies were among samurai of all ranks during the Edo period. Some argue it was an exclusive practice, reserved for the elite. Others suggest that even lower-ranked samurai engaged in simplified versions as a way to find peace in turbulent times. Either way, the ritual feels like a reward, a pause in the chaos of life. As you finish your tea, you realize that food and drink were more than just survival. They were expressions of culture, identity, and even rebellion. You bow quietly to the host, step outside, and gaze up at the emerging stars. Tomorrow's meal is still a mystery, but tonight, you carry the taste of history and hope. Night deepens and the streets grow quieter. The lanterns flicker gently, casting pools of soft light on the wooden sidewalks. You find yourself wandering toward the outskirts of town, where the hum of insects fills the air and the cool breeze carries the faint scent of pine and earth. Here, you stumble upon a humble roadside stall, a simple setup with a charcoal brazier and skewers laid out neatly. The sign reads yakitori. Your stomach rumbles, reminding you that despite the day's scattered meals, hunger is never far behind. The vendor, an older man with a kind smile, offers you a skewer of grilled chicken. The meat is tender and smoky, brushed with a glaze of soy and mirin that catches the lantern light like liquid amber. Yakitori wasn't just street food, it was a favorite among samurai and townsfolk alike. Quick to prepare, easy to eat, on the go and packed with flavor, it offered a welcome break from the usual rice and soup. You bite into the skewer, the savory juices mingling with the subtle sweetness of the glaze. Each chew brings warmth and comfort, a reminder that even in tough times, simple pleasures endure. Interestingly, some scholars argue that yakitori's rise in popularity coincided with the loosening of strict dietary taboos around meat consumption during the late Edo period. Others believe it was always part of the clandestine culinary repertoire. Enjoyed quietly under the cover of night, you savor the moment, the sounds of the town fading into a gentle hush as the night deepens. With the last bite finished, you thank the vendor, bow deeply, and tuck the skewer stick into your sleeve, a small trophy of the day's journey. You continue your walk, feeling the gentle satisfaction of a day well fed, even if the meals were scattered and humble. As you glance up at the stars, you realize that what a samurai ate for lunch was never just about food, it was about resilience, adaptation, and finding moments of joy amidst uncertainty. And with that thought, you ready yourself for whatever tomorrow's table might bring. The dawn sneaks in softly, filtering through paper screens like a gentle promise. You wake with a quiet rumble in your belly, not hunger exactly, but the kind of anticipation only morning can bring. You step outside, the cool air filling your lungs as the village begins to stir. You spot a small crowd gathered near the rice granary, where merchants are setting up crates and sacks of freshly milled grains. Today, you're drawn by a different scent, the smoky aroma of grilled fish. Sizzling over open coals, a vendor offers you a piece of sanma or Pacific sori, its skin crisped and shimmering. You take a careful bite, the oily flesh, rich and slightly sweet, mingling perfectly with the charred edges. Fish was a cornerstone of the samurai diet, especially for those who lived near rivers or the sea. Salted, grilled, or simmered, it provided protein when meat was scarce or taboo. Yet, even among fish, there was hierarchy. Some prized the delicate taste of ayu sweet fish, while others favored the humble but reliable sanma. You chew thoughtfully, feeling the flavors weave together like a story told through taste. The vendor mentions a curious tradition during festivals. Fish was often prepared with rice, wine, and special herbs, turning a simple meal into a celebration. Historians still debate how common such festive meals were among the average samurai. Was this a rare indulgence or a seasonal staple? You decide it doesn't matter. Today, you have tasted both survival and celebration in a single bite. As the sun climbs higher, you tuck the memory away like a cherished keepsake and prepare for the day ahead, grateful for the simple joys found in a samurai's lunch. The day wanes toward evening, and the air cools with a gentle hush that signals rest. You find yourself drawn back into the heart of town, where a small shop offers a quiet refuge from the bustle. The scent of freshly baked rice crackers beckons. You watch as the shopkeeper skillfully turns wooden paddles, flipping thin, crisp crackers over a charcoal flame. The rhythmic snap and crackle fill the room with a warm comfort. Rice crackers, or senbei, were a popular snack for samurai and townsfolk alike. Often flavored with soy sauce or wrapped in seaweed, they offered a crunchy contrast to the soft textures of rice and noodles. You buy a few, savoring the delicate balance of sweet, salty, and smoky flavors. Each bite reminds you that even the simplest foods can carry a story. Some scholars debate whether senbei were considered a meal or merely a snack during the Edo period. The truth likely depends on the eater's hunger and circumstance. You reflect on how food, in all its forms, wove through the lives of samurai, not just the body, but the spirit. As you leave the shop, the sun dips below the horizon, and the first stars begin to twinkle. You feel a quiet gratitude for the day's meals, the stories behind them, and the path that brought you here. Tomorrow will bring new tastes, new challenges, and new moments of calm. For now, you carry the warmth of this evening, and the gentle crunch of senbei with you into the night. The night has settled fully now, wrapping the town in a blanket of stars and silence. You find yourself sitting outside beneath the eaves of your modest home, the faint glow of a paper lantern casting soft light on your weathered hands. Your thoughts drift to the day's meals, the miso soup, the humble rice balls, the wild boar skewer, the cold noodles, and even the sweet potato by the fire. Each bite a thread in the fabric of your day, a reminder of survival and small pleasures. You pull your kimono tighter against the chill, savoring the quiet moment. Food for a samurai was never just sustenance, it was tradition, necessity, and sometimes a fleeting luxury, a connection to family, to culture, to the earth beneath your feet. Historians continue to debate many details about samurai diets, the balance of ceremony and practicality, the influence of religion, and how much choice a warrior truly had. But as you sit here, under the vast sky, none of that matters. What matters is the taste, the warmth, the simple joy of a meal after a long day. You close your eyes, letting the sounds of the night lull you toward rest. Your journey through the flavors of samurai lunch has come to an end, but the memories remain a gentle hum beneath the stars. Rest well, warrior. Tomorrow, the table will wait. The night deepens and the world softens around you. Your breath slows, your muscles relax, and the stories of the day fade into a gentle whisper. You're no longer walking through streets or markets, but drifting, weightless and calm, through quiet dreams. Imagine the warmth of a hearth, the soft rustle of leaves, and the faint scent of rice and tea lingering in the air. The taste of simple meals mingles with the hush of twilight, wrapping you in comfort. Let your thoughts drift like clouds, slow and steady. The day's worries melt away, replaced by the soothing rhythm of peace and rest. You are safe, you are calm, and you are ready to slip into sleep's gentle embrace. Good night, dear listener. May your dreams be as rich and comforting as a samurai's lunch.